Hello, Backstitchers. Welcome to day 3 of the Gus Sculpt Along for the pattern weight. Today we're going to be working on Gus's body. Yesterday, on day 2, we worked on his head. So he is done. And so far, this is his face and his head. All right, so we're going to go ahead and set him aside. Now for his body, we're going to go ahead and we're going to take I want to make sure, actually, clean our blade off. Even though we're working in the same color, it's still good to clean your work area every once in a while. Just because it can get dust particles and other stuff on it. All right. All right, so we're going to go ahead and cut a chunk of brown. All right, so I showed you the lines on the packs of clay. So we're just going to cut across one of the lines. And then we're going to take and cut that in half. And this half is what we're going to use for the body. Now, if you look at Gus, his body, oops, he's pretty round. He's got a cute little belly. He's got short, stubby legs, and his arms are pretty short and stubby too. Now, if you look at the picture I get of him, okay, there. What we're gonna do is we're just going to make a ball, just like that. I'm gonna set this on top just to see, like, if that's the proportion that you like, then just go ahead and use that. Now, I like this proportion, so I'm just gonna stick with that. If you remember, we had on the bottom of his head, we made a hole. So what I'm gonna do I made a point. And when we're done with adding his shirt and arms and all that kind of stuff, we are going to be able to set his head on that point. So, what we're going to do, all right, for his shirt, we're going to take the yellow, and we're across those lines, we're going to use about an 1/8. I'm going to cut about an 1/8 of that yellow off. And we're going to go ahead get the clay soft in your hands. Okay, so we're going to make a ball out of the yellow. If you want to stick with a bright yellow, in his reference picture, the one that we pulled off the internet, his shirt is pretty bright. So if you want to keep it that yellow, go ahead. If you want to make it a little bit darker, I would suggest adding just a touch of the brown, and that'll give it more of like an earthy, or give you more of an earthy yellow. I'm going to go ahead and stick with this yellow. So you formed it in a ball, and now you're going to flatten it into a circle. Now, you can use it this way. And basically take your silicone pointed tool, or you could use, if you want it to be so it's not, the end isn't so bendy, you can take your a toothpick and in the middle make a hole. Stick it all the way through, and then go back through with your pointed silicone tool. Basically, what we're doing is we're making a shirt for him, and we want an opening to put his neck through. Now, if you watched the Edna tutorial, in one of the videos, I explained that you don't have to have specific tools that are made by companies that are made specifically just for clay. I'm using my paintbrush handle to make the hole bigger. Doing this, the hole is now like, there's no ragged ends in there. It's a smooth circle. So what we're going to do is we're going to lay this on top, just like you would put your head through a shirt. We're just going to lay that shirt down, or we're just gently going to form it around Gus's body. Now, if you look at his reference picture, his little belly sticks out, most of his belly. So as you can see right here, we got most of his belly exposed. Now, the edges of his shirt, I just kind of push in a little bit. And to me, it gives the illusion of his shirt's a little too tight, like it was in the movie. So this is what his body looks like so far. Now, we have him sitting with one of his arms is out holding a blue bead, but we need to get so if you want to, at this point in time, you can just set his head on there like this. And we need to take some more of the yellow, which I'm going to cut another 1/8 of an inch off the yellow block. I'm going to roll that into a circle or a ball, and I'm going to cut the ball in half. And cut it in half again. What are you doing? No. Go lay down. So now you have 2 balls. And what we're going to do is we're going to make the little teardrops again. Okay. So you have little teardrops. Now you want to take your pointed silicone tool, and in the middle of the bottom of the teardrop in the middle, you're going to stick the pointed end in, and then you're just going to swirl gently so you're not squishing, because these are going to be your sleeves or your arms, and where your hands, his hands are going to stick out. So you keep doing that. You get an opening. And then you do the same thing to the other side. Okay, so now we have part of his arms done. Now we're going to be touching brown again, so we want to wipe the yellow off of our hands because the yellow is really bright, and there would be a color transfer. All right, so cleaned our hands off. We're going to take some of the brown that we set aside, and I'm going to say about the size of a large pea. And roll it into a ball, cut it in half, roll those into balls. Now, we're going to do that teardrop again, but we're not going to make it as long. Now we're going to make his hands. So you got that little The bottom is, see, it looks like a teardrop. So the bottom is going to be a little bit larger. Now we don't want his hands to be like clubs, so we're just going to take your finger at the tip and we're going to smush it down a little bit. So that way it looks kind of like a spoon. We're going to put a little bit of your Bacon Bond inside your sleeve and slip your hand inside, just like that. Okay, now we're going to do the same with the other. Roll into a ball. Make a teardrop. Smush just the end to where it's rounded. Just like that. Then take your Bacon Bond, squeeze a little bit. You don't have to have that much. You maybe fill your sleeve half full, and then just slip your hand/arm in there, just like that. Now we're going to attach his arms. So we're going to go ahead and take his head off. We have one that hangs down by his side, and then we have one that's holding the bead. It really doesn't matter which arm holds the bead and which arm hangs down to the side. But the tip of the arm or the sleeve up here, I'm going to attach to starting at like where the collar of the shirt would be in the back. And then we're going to drape it so it comes to the front. And give it a little smush so that way it is in place, or it's sticking to the to the sleeve or to the shirt. See? And then we do the same with the other. So I think I like this one. I'm going to have this one holding the bead. And then this other one, I'm going to do the same thing, but instead of bringing the arm to the front, I'm just going to have it just hang to his side. Or if you want, you can actually have it to where if you do want to bring it to the front, both of them, okay? So far, this is what it looks like. So now that we got that, we can attach his head, which I'm going to take a little bit of the Bacon Bond and I pretty much fill it full, not completely full. There's a little bit of room, but I want to make sure that that Bacon Bond is filling his head to connect the head to the body. So that way, when I connect it, it will leak out a little bit. You also may want to put like a very thin amount around the collar of his shirt. So that way when you push his head on and you cook him, it's going to stay right where he is. All right. So far, this is what his little body looks like. Okay. Now working with brown, we're going to go ahead and wipe our hands again. And we're going to go ahead and make a little bead. So we are going to, they have clay that's pearlescent. So if you wanted to actually have like a pearl shine to it, you could get the pearlescent white and mix it with the blue. It will be like a lighter blue. I just got the just the normal robin's egg blue. And I'm going to cut about 1/8 with a strip off. So, and I'm going to roll it into a ball. So as any bead would have the 2 holes that you stick your string through, if like when it's put together as a necklace. So I just take my sewing pin and stick it through to start it. And then you can take your pointed silicone tool, stick it in one side, and make the opening just a little bit bigger so it looks more like a bead. Now I take the bead to where you have one of the little holes sticking up and out, so that way people can see it and they're like, oh, that's the bead that him and Jacques collected. So his hands are there. And you're just going to, not going to mash his hands up to the bead, but you want to make sure that the bead is going to be secure once it's like it won't roll off once you cook it. So there he is holding the blue bead. We're going to go ahead and get his body. Now that his body, the only thing that we have to do is his legs and his shoes, but to me that is part of the base because he's sitting down. So we're going to go ahead and get his body cooked. I will also, we need to, without squishing him, we want a form of stability. So I'm going to take a toothpick and in the middle, I'm going to insert the toothpick until you can't, it'll stop, because once it hits the head is, it's hard, so it won't So you're going to cook it on a toothpick. When we assemble the body to the actual weight or the base, this will insert into the base and it will form, it'll make it stronger. Some people who work with clay, they actually use, instead of using a toothpick, they actually use a piece of like metal wire. And I'm not saying that that's wrong or it's right, but for me, I don't like to use wire because I've had pieces where I have used wire, the piece slides off because there's nothing really for, unless you make the hook at the end, which I don't like doing because I always mess up my piece. It's easier for me to just stick a toothpick or use a toothpick because the toothpick is made out of wood, which is porous, and when you stick your character in the oven to cook, polymer clay is a plastic-based clay, so when the clay melts, it will seep into the pores and the grain of the wood and bond with the wood, if that makes any sense. So, and I've never had an issue with the, your piece sliding off of the wood, where I have had issues with the clay sliding off of metal because there's nothing really there to grip. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to pop him in our oven at the same temperature, 200 degrees. We're going to cook him. I feel so bad when I say that. We're going to cook him for about 10 minutes. At this point, because his head has already been cooked and the coloring inside of his ears are fairly light, I would start putting a piece of aluminum foil over his body because if it gets too hot in there, or if he cooks for too long, because his body is a lot thicker than his ears, you're going to burn his ears and there'll be burn marks, and we don't want that. So go ahead, when you cook him, you lay him on your piece of parchment paper, and then you're going to drape a piece of aluminum foil. You don't have to wrap him up or anything like that. You just drape it over his body like that. So that way it protects direct heat from scorching his ears. So this completes day 3, and I will be back in the next video for day 4, where we will be putting the base or the pincushion pumpkin together. And then we'll have the last day of day 5 of assembling the whole piece. So thank you for joining me today, and I will see you tomorrow.